What's going on, everybody? We are back. We got episode number 84 of the Club and Sub podcast. This week we're talking about UFC London, little afternoon card on the East Coast. It's kind of fun times here. Actually get to do things on Saturday night. And it's a decent card out there. I don't know if it's the best for betting, but there's a couple spots that are interesting. As usual, you got me, John at MMA Fox, Luke at SWR underscore betting at Lags, Danny underscore Lags. Yeah, guys, if you like the show, please drop a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. And yeah, let's hop right into it here. So, first fight of the night, we got Muhammad Mokaev. He's 21 years old, 5-0, very hyped Russian who's kind of not Russian. But he's making his debut here against Cody Durden, coming off a gross win against Saori Kileng. Luke, you want to get started? What do you think here?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I still don't 100% know what to make of Mokaev, to be honest. Obviously, like he probably falls into like the hardcore darling type of category where everybody's kind of been in the know. Like, the guy's coming. He's eventually going to make the debut. Let's see what happens. Let's see who he draws. Obviously, strong wrestler, grappler archetype. But I also don't love what I've seen from him on the feet either. I think he seems a tad uncomfortable, if I'm being completely honest. Like he seems kind of like a fidgety. Fidgety is the best way I can describe it. He has lost position in a couple fights, and there are a couple other fights available out there, I should say, that aren't widely available out there. I think the Driscoll fight, where I don't think it looks necessarily the greatest for Mokaev personally. So I do think Durden is actually quasi live in this spot. The problem I have with Durden is why I can't back him. I don't trust his gas tank against someone who's going to go out there and proactively wrestle him. I just don't think it holds up in this spot. I think it's kind of a trap by the number almost on Durden, but I don't think that's like a widely available opinion because obviously everybody has Mokaev in their parlays. The guy's the bee's knees. He's the second coming of Christ, but it's like there's some red flags on the kid. There really is. And it's not like they're saying, okay, here, Mokaev, you're in the UK, your OG country, not your official country, but your OG country or whatever. Here's this excellent showcase spot for you. I don't necessarily subscribe to that opinion. I do think Cody can put up some resistance. So like gun to my head, I'd probably actually just take the flyer on Durden personally, but we'll see. Like I said, it's hard to invest in somebody who does not have necessarily the greatest gas tank. So on shorter notice too. So against someone who's going to come out there and wrestle them, but we'll see.
Lags, what do you think?
Yeah, kind of similarly. Like I think that the line of Mokaev's getting obviously is wide for sure, but like I think that grappling and the pace down the stretch is going to do him in. Like I was actually looking at FanDuel earlier at props. The round 3 decision actually isn't a bad look for Mokaev. I think that's sitting at plus 130, and the fight goes the distance is plus 130 as well. I don't think that's a bad look as well. I just think the finishing upside is kind of overstated for Mokaev.
Yeah, I have some interest in Durden if the line keeps widening. Like if it gets near the 350, 400 range, I think I'll just take a poke on principle. I broadly agree with both of you guys. I think for me, it's like I guess I can see why people think he's talented. Like if someone showed me his tape and was like, "Watch this kid," like in 5 years you're gonna know about him, I'd be like, "Okay, that makes sense. He looks pretty talented." And he's 21 years old, so again, that would make sense. He's a very young kid. But looking at his tape, he's very, very raw. And like even everywhere, I know, he styles himself a grappler, and I'm not saying his grappling is bad, but like, he's losing position against guys who really can't grapple. And that's like something that's an immediate red flag for me. He has a bad tendency when he gets flustered on the feet for just take shots from like way too far out. And now he's fighting a guy in Durden who's a solid grappler. He comes from a wrestling background. He's got a bunch of wins by submission. He's shown a decent ability to scramble and a decent ability to stop takedowns, and a guy who is going to go forward on him. And Luke, you touched on the O'Driscoll fight, but one of the things I noticed was when O'Driscoll went forward, there's not a lot of defense on the other end from Mokaev. His hands are down, his chin is up, and his head stationary. Durden's the kind of guy who he's going to come out there, bite the mouthpiece, and go at you. And I think there's opportunities early in this fight for him to have a lot of success, to be honest.
And not to cut you off real quick too, John. I mean, Durden's a really strong starter. Like,
Yeah,
he
very strong
does well
starter.
early.
And he's a very strong guy in that vein too. This is a guy who was fighting at 35. Early in the fight with Chris Gutierrez was manhandling him on the mat. Like I really don't think early in this fight Mokaev's going to have a huge advantage grappling. But to both your points and to what I'm sure everybody's point is thinking about this fight, it's just like if Durden comes out and does what I think he needs to, which is stay in his face and just fire. How long can he fight at that pace? So far he hasn't showed it, right? The ability to. He's a young enough guy that maybe he can make some tweaks in training and, his cardio is a bit better here. But I just, if he's not fighting at a frenetic pace, Mokaev's going to push a pace on him that he's going to force him to fight at a heavy pace anyway. And I just don't really trust his cardio down the stretch. So it's like, look, Durden checks a lot of boxes here. Like, I think Mokaev's getting overhyped a bit. He's got a lot more experience. He is a decent athlete. He can crack. But, the gas tank's a big red flag. So we'll see. If it keeps moving, I might bet him. But, yeah, at the moment, it's a pass. Moving on, though, Luke, I think you have a play here. We have a weird one. We got Elise Reed. She's 4-1, taking on Corey McKenna, who's 6-1. What are your thoughts here?
I love me some McKenna here. To be completely honest, I've never been a big proponent of Elise Reed. Actually, it was a max bet had on Sijara Eubanks, I think at minus 240 against her, which, chalky, but I think Sijara was like minus 1,000 in the fight hindsight. And I don't throw 5 units around every single day. But my big thing here is I think from a contextual perspective, like the girl is just getting another favor. Like we've seen this a couple times in the UFC, where these fighters, they come in, they take a short notice fight or whatever. Like, okay, you did us a favor. We're giving you another matchup because you did us a favor, but they're not doing you a service in the next matchup. And it's also a fight in London, right? Or, Corey McKenna, OG, UK. I think they're trying to give her a showcase fight because she went out there and fought D-Mop or whatever. And, D-Mop, 10th planet black belt, aggressive guard. She didn't look great in that fight. Definitely won the fight. Obviously, in her next fight against Hansen, didn't look good. In my opinion, I actually think she did lose the fight, as did many other people. But I think it's also a step back down because even Hansen's 10th planet black belt, actually a pretty decent wrestler. Doesn't sound good to say that hindsight from the last fight from Hansen, but big size discrepancy from Jessica Vicious. So there's some context there. But nonetheless, I think it's one of these spots where they're trying to give a showcase spot for McKenna. She has massive advantages on the ground in this fight. I don't see why she can't land takedowns. Reed has been taken down at least once in her last 4 pro fights. She's consistent to get wrestled. She's consistent to get passed. I can see the fight being competitive on the feet because McKenna is definitely nothing special on the feet. I get it 100%, but it's like, how long is this fight going to be on the feet? I think McKenna's finish ability is actually extremely underrated in this fight. She's plus 300 inside the distance. I think that should probably be closer to like plus 150. To be honest, I think she finishes Elise Reed this week.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, I actually like some Corey McKenna as well. I mean, I don't know if it's really a hot take, but I actually think she's like the safest, bigger favorite on the card, to be honest with you. I think that in the striking realm, I think she's a much cleaner, crisper striker. She hits harder. She's got more volume here. And I like Lou touched on, the grappling edge is massive here. I think that McKenna can have no issue taking her down, mixing in the takedown. So I think that minus 230 is actually probably not a bad price tag and probably safe in parlays, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I actually agree with that sentiment, Legs. I kind of think, we'll get into it. And I'm not saying I'm betting some of the bigger dogs here. To date, so far, I haven't bet a dog yet. So on this card, but I do think I think McKenna is probably a safer spot than some of the guys that are lined up at like minus 500, to be completely honest. I might bet her. I think 70% implied is probably pretty short. Like for McKenna to lose this fight, she probably has to just throw a game plan out the window here and just strike with her. And that's a fight she might be able to win anyway, to be honest. Um, yeah, I mean, everything Luke said, I think hits the nail on the head. Something I thought was impressive, the Demopoulos fight. Demopoulos, she's not like an ADCC winner or anything like that, but her guard is the kind of guard that's like, if you're not an experienced fighter, it can be very, very dangerous. And McKenna was able to just float on top really without much problem, which I found very impressive. She got 11 minutes of control there. She had some success with Hansen, who, Hansen's a very physical grappler too, which is the other thing. I worry about McKenna's physicality, but I was actually pretty impressed with that performance. Yeah, she should blanket her here. I don't think the look on McKenna is bad, to be honest.
And real quick, John, I think she has
yeah.
like some JJ Aldridge type components where she's kind of like unassuming, but she's actually a pretty good grappler. Like everyone thought that fucking Jillian Robertson just going to take her down and run her ass. Like I think she's better than a lot of people give her credit for. And I think the last two style matchups were interesting for her, which didn't necessarily make her look great. But this one is a showcase spot for her, in my opinion.
And she's 22, she hasn't fought in a year and a half. She's 22 years old. You can
see some Team Alpha Male too. She's under good tutelage, good camp. So,
yeah, I think it's McKenna or pass, to be honest. But moving on, we got a good one. We got Timur Valiev and Jack Shore. Honestly, I'm just watching this line, but I'm gonna bet Timur Valiev here. It's funny. I was saying the lags before we went on air. I looked at the line when it initially dropped and was kind of just like, Valiev minus 150. That's probably about right. I don't really want to play it. So I hadn't taped it that hard. And then it got down near evens last night and I taped it. Honestly, I guess the angle on Shore here is that he's just blanketed everybody he's fought. The thing is, the guys that he's been blanketing really are not good. If you want to go through his UFC run today, Ludovic Shalinian, Aaron Phillips, Nolan Hernandez, none of those guys are good defensive grapplers, and he's ripping through them. But then you look at his last fight, it's like Hunter Azure, who is a decent athlete, and I know comes from a wrestling background. But, this is a guy who got held on the fence for nearly 10 minutes by Brad Katona, who's a 135er. Azure is, has shown an ability to have his back taken and be controlled in the grappling in the past. And yet in that fight, Shore really struggled to hold him there on the fence. You saw Azure win some scrambles and get some pop time there and ultimately force a split decision. And to me, that's just like, it's kind of a testament that Shore is kind of, he's the kind of guy that when he has an advantage strength-wise, he's going to probably dominate fights. But when he goes up against it athletically, he just doesn't really have the tools to dominate athletic guys. And I kind of think that's what we're getting here. With Valiev on the feet, I think, Valiev's superior in just about every way. Plus, we're in a big cage now. I don't really see, without Shore hurting him competing standing here. Valiev's got better volume. He's got better cage work than Shore does. Shore is very hittable. Valiev's not. And then even in the grappling, like you go through Valiev's career, no one has grinded this guy in his entire career. He's got a pretty good get-up game. He's very strong when you try to take him down. He does a great job of building a base, grabbing underhooks. And to be honest, he's a good offensive wrestler himself. Like, I was looking at the tape, and if it turned out that Valiev is just a flat-out better grappler and just grappled Shore here, I really, really wouldn't be surprised. Couple that with the fact that the guys that Valiev is beating are just so much better than the guys Jack Shore has faced. I don't know, man. I think Valiev should be like in the minus 150 to minus 185 range here. I'm waiting because I think he might get the dog. We'll see. He's at minus 120 right now. But I'm going to probably take a poke at Valiev here. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you as well. Like I did a deep dive into it. Like going into it, I thought I probably would be like auto betting Shore. And I watched a ton of Valiev tape. And like the big thing I looked at, because Shore historically so strong from largely, those body lock exchanges against the cage, that's largely where those takedowns are coming from. So let's see how Timur is facing in those exchanges. He does such a good job of not allowing body locks and fighting hands. And in the times he's been taken down, to John's point, he ain't getting held down for very long, and it can't be, disregarded from a narrative perspective. He's fighting a Dagestani, right? Valiev necessarily isn't your traditional, grind, your out guy, attempt 5 takedowns. He's not your grinding Dagestani traditional, but even if you go back and, look at a lot of these other Dagestani guys who are even more outside high volume or even low volume outside striking based guys like your Saeeds, your Umars, they're all competent combat sambo based guys. Like it's all just imprinted into their background. So my thing for sure is like, if he can't get those type of takedowns against the cage, I think he might struggle. Where I do think there is merit to Shore, though, is that Valiev is very explosive. He throws a lot of kicks, and we have seen Valiev taken down off of some of those explosive actions. So I think where actually the takedown merit for Shore comes is in those reactionary based takedowns against the fence, which is contrarian to usually how Shore is taking guys down in the past. So I think there's going to be some, rubber meeting the road there where we're going to see if he can do that and if he can hold Valiev down. I'm more so on the side of no. And I think Valiev is just more active. He's faster. He has more power. Where Shore, I think he does the mechanics well. Like he's 1-2s, leg kicks, but he's kind of a little bit of a stick in the mud. And I think Valiev has advantages on the feet in the fight. So I'm with you, John. I don't want to say I don't understand the line movement, but I disagree with the line movement. I think Valiev is a 60 to 65% favorite in this matchup.
Yeah, agreed. Lags, what are your thoughts?
So I'll be a tad contrarian here. Like I would say I lean the short side, but not to the degree of having to play, obviously. But like to me, like to your point, John, Valiev's got a good get up game, but like I think there's merit to Shore landing some takedowns here and there. So like to me, I just think ultimately it's a close fight where it's like I don't think there's a ton of value on either side, and yeah, just a pass.
What I will say, and I'm curious because like this is going to be something we probably talk about later in the card, what you guys think of it. But we have seen British judges be, shall we say, British in the past, which does kind of concern me.
That's what I'm saying. That's what's interesting about it too. Like, I think that's a fair point to talk about. Like, I know a lot of people like bring that up into narratives, like, oh, it doesn't matter a ton. I think it actually does in some instances. It definitely has some
O2 Arena, sure. 40,000 people, bro.
Yeah, this is essentially a pay-per-view, to be honest.
I mean, have they gone? Has there been an open arena event yet?
No, somebody said the last one.
Outside of
are they doing soccer? Yeah. What about soccer? Are they doing soccer with packed crowds?
I don't know. I can't speak.
I don't know about packed crowds, but they have fans. Like they had the Champions League, like they've had it this past week and whatnot. They've had fans and whatnot. But what I was going to add there is I think the last headlining pay-per-view in Europe was Masvidal Till.
Yeah. No, Wonder Boy Till. Oh, no, you're right. Okay. It was Masvidal Till. Masvidal Till. Okay. But Till did rob Wonder Boy in fucking England, in my opinion. In my opinion, anyway. I had a big bet on Wonder Boy in that fight. That was fun. Moving on, though, I was thinking of you here, Lags. You got Nikita Krylov. He's taking on the Bear Jew, Paul Craig. Everybody's favorite Scotsman. What do you think?
We got the people's main event here, pretty much, to be honest with you. I mean, I have the earlier line here on Krylov, plus 134 on FanDuel Opener. I got 2 units on that. Where the fight stands now, though, I think the over 1.5 is probably a decent look, just to be honest with you, because I think as much of a mess as it is on the feet, I think Krylov is a much better striker. And then on the ground here, I think this is no-brainer. Like, Krylov can stay on top and stay safe for the majority of this fight. I think the goes the distance is good here. I think the over 1.5 is good here. I like Krylov in a big way here. I think Craig is pretty much sub or bust.
Yeah, I lean the over and the goes the distance as well. It's interesting because like skill wise, Krylov certainly should be like minus 400 in this fight. Really, the problem for me is it's just like I don't. Krylov optimal fight here would be let's just keep it standing. I'm going to stay on the outside and just kick him. Literally, I'm just going to kick him.
He could. He literally could do that.
But when does he do that? When does the Nikita Krylov fight intelligently? Like that's my thing. And it's like, again, like Krylov, I agree with you, lads. If he grapples intelligently too, I do think has the ability to just take Craig down and float on top. But I don't know, man. Krylov has a tendency of putting himself in places that are messy and gets into. Now, I will say he manages to force even good grapplers into messy grappling with him. He has this tendency of just causing chaos. But like, Paul Craig, this is a man who thrives on chaos. He was born in chaos. Now, am I betting Paul Craig? Fuck no. Definitely not. Like, skill-wise, Krylov has got him completely covered here. I trust Craig enough to cause chaos and Krylov enough to let the chaos happen that I don't really want to lay a number on him. But, it's like the classic favorite or pass spot here. If I needed to bet on what the value side is, I'm pretty sure it's Krylov. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I played Krylov small for a unit for a lot of the reasons you guys mentioned, because there's a lot of disconcerting things, with Krylov, but at the same time, he has such high favorite upside in this fight, in my opinion. Like, it's bare bones about the fact the guy's the better striker, in this fight. Like, he 100% is. Like, I mean, the guy took a round off of Mokaev and Valiev. He outstruck Glover Teixeira. Like, he's the better striker in this fight. There's no doubt about that. It's just whether Nikita's going to be a little bit dumb. And even in saying that, that's not saying by him being dumb going into the guard of Craig, but that does give Craig the best opportunity he does need to succeed. And we have seen Krylov submitted multiple times, but it also needs to be noted that, Krylov is traditionally not getting submitted in the guard, which I don't think can be completely ignored here too. So I'm not loading up on it because I have my sweatiness about it, but at the same time, I think Krylov just has more paths to win this fight. He just has so many more paths to win this fight. Craig is a horrible minute winner historically. And Craig, or I'm sorry, not Craig, but Krylov is actually a pretty good submission grappler too. We have seen Craig submitted before. We did see Shogun lay on him for 2 rounds where he couldn't do anything because he's going to sit there and play guard and play from his back. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Krylov just controls him, for multiple rounds or whatever. I think, Krylov at 33 years old is a much better version of a 42-year-old washed Shogun. So I played it small for the reason I don't overtly trust him, but at the same time, I still want my money on Krylov because I think he can look like minus 1,000 in this fight.
I think even to add on to that, sorry, John, real quick. Even looking at these last 5 fights for Paul Craig, I mean, look at the strength of the competition. We got Shogun Hua twice. We have Jamal Hill, the last fight, who literally dove into his guard, and Vinicius Mokaev.
He did beat Mokaev and Valiev.
Right now, John.
We're not talking about that.
Dude, Paul Craig, when the book is written on MMA in 10 years, and when my kid's old enough to watch MMA, he'll be wiki capping it and be like, this guy Paul Craig beat 10-time defending champion Mokaev and Valiev and Jamal Hill. Who is he? And I'm
that's
going to be
you don't want to know. That's going to be the new campfire, John, where you're not talking to us, you're talking to the John kids. Okay, guys, we need to have a second here.
Yes. Do not look at Paul Craig's wiki page. Moving on, though, we got Shamil Abdurakhimov. He's coming off of a pretty violent knockout against Chris Daukaus. That happened, I think, back in September. And he's taken on Sergey Pavlovich, who's been away for quite a while. I think over 2 years. I don't think he's fought since COVID.
Almost 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if this fight happened before COVID and I was getting plus 250 on Shamil here, I'd probably back up the Brinks truck on it. I do think Shamil is probably the more skilled fighter. He's the better boxer. He's the better defensive fighter. He's probably the better grappler. The problem for me, just at the end of the day, is it's like Shamil's 41. He just came off a long layoff himself. And honestly, he didn't look bad against Daukaus before he got hurt. He actually looked pretty good in the first round of that fight. And then he got hurt. And then he got viciously finished in the second round. And now he's turning around and he's taking on an athletic power puncher in Pavlovich. And it's just I look at the fight and I'm like, this is a spot where I'm like, I really wanted to bet Shamil, but also I'm done throwing money in the fire on 41-year-olds with spotty chins. I know how this goes. It's either going to be he gets insta-killed or he's going to look good for 3 minutes, enough for me to say there's value, and then gets insta-killed. I would think about betting him after a round, to be honest, live, if the odds are close, if he's still there. like I said, I don't think you could justify a bet on a Pavlovich money line here. It's just Shamil is the better fighter. He's just an old man coming off a violent knockout. So I think Pavlovich is going to knock him out, but I don't know how anybody could lay this. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, that's kind of my thing for me as well. I think anything with Shamil is just kind of trapped by the number, because I think you can make stylistic arguments as to why he's value. I think you can make statistical arguments as to why he's value, but it's like he's gonna get knocked out here. He's just gonna get knocked out here. So it's one of those weird spots where it's like, don't pitch your money away, and in my opinion. But I'm not gonna lie, to make the case for Shamil, there's a lot of things I still don't like about Pavlovich, in the sense that he doesn't throw a lot of strikes, despite him coming from a quote unquote, strong grappling background. Guy doesn't really fucking wrestle. When he does, he gets stuffed.
He looked lost
every single
against Overeem on his back too.
Exactly. The one time he's been on his back after a foot sweep from Overeem, he had nothing and got pounded on the ground. So it's like, to your point, I don't know who's laying minus 300 on Pavlovich. Like, it could look great. Once again, probably does, because I think he kills him. But it's like, historically, in analyzing the tape, it's like, who's laying 300 on fucking Pavlovich on a 2.5-year lap? I'm good. This is a massive fucking pass for me, bro.
Yeah, it's also like, it's the kind of fight, right, where it's like, in hindsight, you might be like, oh, wow, we really should have bet Shamil. He should have been a favorite. Or it could be like, he's so shot, he's literally like a 10% outcome for a win for him. It's like, it's not.
And I'm fine just not having a cent.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm cool with that. Like, I don't care. I don't care.
Lags, will you invest a cent here?
I will not, and I will echo both of your sentiments that you just mentioned, that on this fight and the Gunnar Nelson fight. I think that's another fight where it's like, okay, Gunnar could look like massive value, but it's also one, okay, he's been off such a long layoff that it's like, well, maybe there's value to Sato. It's a huge dog, and that's kind of where I think here it's like, yeah, he probably does kill him early, but like, there's no way I have any interest in laying it. I think the under 1.5, if you're looking for anything on this fight, that's where I would go. I have no interest.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on, we have, oh God, this is an ugly one. We got Mike Grundy taking on Makwan Amirkhani. Like, this is one that I think we're all going to hope ends rather fast. Otherwise, it could be really ugly. What are your thoughts here, Alex?
So that's another thing that I was looking at earlier too, because like, to me, I think this fight could get drawn out. And like, I'm not looking to lay this number, but I think it goes the distance at minus 180. I don't think that's terrible to me. I don't see a ton of finishing upside. I think this fight's pretty ugly. Like, on the feet, there's really no volume from either side. I trust Grundy way more on the feet, hits way harder. In terms of the wrestling, Grundy's more reliable to shoot takedowns, and I think he's more reliable to get top time here. So, yeah, honestly, like, early numbers here on Grundy, I don't hate, but like minus 185 on Grundy, I think it's a big pass.
Yeah, I'm somewhat regretting not betting Grundy early, to be honest, just because like I was doing a dive on the stats a bit. Like, Grundy's a gasser, but he attempted 20 takedowns against Lando. Like, if he attempts 20 takedowns here, he's probably going to win this fight. It's funny though, because obviously both of these guys as strikers are very, very low volume. Both have pretty bad cardio issues. I've seen some takes that Grundy KO, but it's like Grundy's got one standing knockout in his entire career. Like, I'm not even sure how much I buy him being a hitter. I think people think that because he's built big physically, but it doesn't seem like the impact is really there when he's striking with guys. I don't know. It's weird because like I think you could make a case that Makwan's the better wrestler, or at least maybe not the better grappler, but I think his entries are a bit better. I think his takedowns are a bit more educated, but also, if one of these guys is going to get up off their back or reverse position, I kind of think it's going to be Grundy. Like, I don't know. It's almost in some respects a mirror match, but I think Grundy has more fight, if that makes sense. Like, if it comes down to who's going to dig deeper, I trust Grundy a lot more in a dogfight than I do Makwan. Like, Grundy at least keep coming, whereas I don't know. I'm just done with Makwan. I've donated so much money, like, betting on Makwan's talent. I think I'm done at this point. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, bet Makwan against Murphy. That's probably one of the worst I've ever taken at like plus 270. Guy just wins the first round clearly and just
he looked like a big favorite.
30 seconds later. That's the problem with the guy. Like, I think he's clearly the better submission grappler in the fight. There's no doubt about that, but it's the clear thing with Mach 1 is that he has about 5 to 6 minutes of gas. But at the same time, to your point, hindsight 2020, I guess I kind of understand why people came in early on Grundy, because his gas tank's probably better. He has a better power edge. He's probably a better scrambler. But it's like, I also don't know how he defensively grapples overall against a guy in Amirkhani who's still incredibly dangerous. Like, we still don't have that data point at all. So I think that's still something that's being slightly thrown out the window and a little bit conceded for a lot of the people that are just like chucking their money on Grundy and thinking it's a lock. Coupled with the fact that, to your point, John, like, both these guys aren't going to sit here and land 5 significant strikes per minute. So it's like, if they stand for 15 minutes, it's like, is Mike Grundy minus 200 in that? I'm not necessarily convinced. So am I trying to lay Mach 1? Probably not. At this point, he's probably a guy you would probably want to look to target, inside the distance. But at the same time, I'm not trying to lay Grundy either. It's kind of a weird fight overall. But if you got it on Grundy early, I get it. But at minus 186, like, fuck that.
No.
Like,
No.
I'm good.
It's like, do you really want to watch Grundy gasping for air in a 1-1 fight in round 3 at minus 185?
Or gets locked, or he shoots a sloppy shot from the outside, and Mach 1 just locks up a front headlock in a Darcer and a Condor. I'm good, bro.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm with you. Fuck this fight. Moving on, we got could be a fun one, could be an easy one. We'll see. We got Jai Herbert. He's taking on Ilia Topuria. Luke, what do you think here?
Yeah, I'm more so the opinion that Topuria smokes him. My consideration with him is always kind of what the gas tank is like. That fight with Homeboy's Law, did not look great in the aggregate. He death gassed when he did not finish the guy he dropped through round. To his credit, he won the first 2 rounds very clearly, but that's still the only fight that we have for him where it's been, overtly extended. Oh,
it was on short notice too.
That's true. I'm just saying that's all we got.
I know.
I'm just saying that's all we got. So that's still where my concern with Topuria is. I do actually rate Herbert as a boxer offensively. I think he's pretty potent. He's long. He's fast. He has power. But I think Topuria is going to get in his face, and we know that Herbert's very defensively liable there. We've seen Herbert take it down multiple times, even in the scenarios that he hasn't been submitted. He's been modded multiple times. He's gotten past consistently pretty easily. And I just generally value Topuria's top game. I also value Topuria's front headlock series. I just don't think it is a great matchup for Jai Herbert, in the sense that that he should probably get finished early. But once again, if he can't, we get Zalal fight all over again. You get maybe a closer second round where he gasses himself trying to finish him and he can't. And then, you get Herbert, taking some stuff over. There's always some merit to that too. So am I trying to parlay Homeboy at minus 450? No, absolutely not. I don't know who is. I think that's fucking crazy. I'd say play him inside the distance, maybe target an MOV if you think something happens more often than not. I'm more so on the sub side personally, but it's a pass for me.
Lags, how about you?
Yeah, I think Topuria largely wrecks him, to be honest with you. I mean, again, to echo Luke's point, I'm not looking to lay that number, but like, outside of the huge weight discrepancy here, like the size discrepancy, I should say. I think Topuria runs through him, to be honest with you. I think on the feet, Jai's a huge defensive liability, and on the mat, he's just huge takedown. His takedown defense is suspect, obviously, and I think Topuria could just run him on the mat. So I'm looking at Topuria round 1, round 2. That's sitting at minus 160 on FanDuel because I know the inside the distance line got smoked. That's like minus 250. I just don't see a ton of round 3 finish potential for Topuria. So round 1, round 2, minus 160.
Did you bet that?
No, I'm looking to.
Okay.
Is that on FanDuel?
I mean, it's like
yeah, it's on FanDuel. Yeah, they have it. They're literally sitting there right now. Yep.
This fight is just like. I honestly think that the hype train on Topuria is jumping the shark a bit here. Like, I've seen takes about his striking, like he's this plus striker. I think if you go back and watch the Zalal fight, there's some pretty concerning tendencies he has. And other than that, you have a 2-minute sample with Damon Jackson and him landing hammer fists on Ryan Hall. So I don't really buy that. We've seen, and to your point, lads, with short notice, but the only time the guy's been extended in his career, we've seen him slow down, like to an alarming rate. Look, he's obviously a very slick submission grappler. That's what I feel confident in saying. But even in his grappling, it's like, has anybody seen him face like kind of any resistance in the takedowns? Like that, that's kind of like my thing. It's like he tends to just single shoot a double leg and just get it every time. And maybe he gets it against Herbert. But what I will say for Herbert is, Herbert actually defended the doubles okay against Donato. It was like more when Donato got inside, he went up to the body lock, was able to just inside trip him. Not really Topuria's game. He may have that in his toolkit here. But I got to say, the size does matter. Like, Herbert is so much bigger than Topuria here. Topuria is the same height as Aljamain Sterling with a shorter reach, to put it in perspective. Whereas Herbert's 6'1" with an 8-inch reach advantage, my big question, and like I was going to bet Jordan against Topuria just because I kind of felt like, as good as Topuria's submission grappling is, he does sacrifice position for submissions all the time. And against someone who can fight front chokes, I think that's going to go badly for him eventually. I just don't know whether or not Herbert is that guy. If he can, though, if Herbert can actually do a decent job of fighting chokes, this could actually be a pretty dicey fight. He's a lot bigger. I honestly am not completely sold that, Topuria gets the takedown super easily. It's just once he gets it, like you said, Luke, he got mounted 4 times by Moicano. He's going to his guard's going to get cut through like it's nothing here.
And reach.
Yeah, I mean, his grappling is bad. It's quite bad. So I'm again this like place where it's like Topuria is so much smaller. I think he is definitely the worst striker here. Herbert can crack it. He's minus 600 in England, but also, if it turns out the takedowns do come easily for him, then the line's probably justified. I'm not going to bet Herbert. I honestly think you can make a reasonable case to do it, just because we saw Yusuf Zalal reverse position 3 times in their fight. Yusuf Zalal is a guy who just got washed on the map by Jose Mariscal regionally right before he came to the UFC. So I'm not really buying that Topuria is going to just take him down and consolidate half guard, but I do think him insta-subbing Herbert is very in play and likely the likely outcome here. I'm just not really eager to play Topuria in any capacity, really, in this kind of fight. I bet him against Jackson. I bet him big against Zalal. I don't think it's a great sign that he's going up to 55. He's clearly even not a big 45er, and he's going up to 55 because he had issues cutting weight to 45. I don't really, from a narrative standpoint, I don't really love that, to be honest. Like, it's kind of indicative of someone who's not taking this as seriously as they should be. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, but how is a guy 5'7" missing 145? Like that's I don't really know. But yeah, I'm not.
To add something, John, separate aside from the fight, even though we did lose that great fight with Valiev and Topuria, now we have an even better rivalry. If both win this weekend, Topuria, Patty.
No, the optimal outcome here is Topuria subs him in 45 seconds and ends up as a big favorite against Valiev. That's the optimal outcome in this fight, to be completely honest.
I just want to see that fight. I like
Topuria and Patty would be electric. That would be
especially because they're talking about like a main event in like Liverpool, England. That'd be nuts.
That would be fun.
John, what do you think? What do you think that line would be if he rolls Jai,
smokes him around?
They book Valiev again. What's the Valiev Topuria line?
It might be minus 200. I mean, minus 185. He was minus 130 when the fight got canceled last time. You know, like
Yeah.
the Topuria hype machine is in motion. Like he's taking pictures with Dana White. They're giving him the worst possible grappler at 55 for him to come out here and make. People are hyped. People are hyped. I hope they make that fight. But I will say, Topuria Patty would be electric, especially if it was in Liverpool in front of all those dirty scousers. Would be awesome.
And by the way, to add real quick, just saw the message in the chat. C said Herbert KO won.
I can see it.
While we're at it, real quick, I might as well look at the number.
Pull it up, Legs.
Herbert. So Herbert round 1 is 12-1, and then you have Herbert KO round 1 is 14-1.
John,
you know what's gonna be? I really feel like I can't take the stab on Herbert here. Like if I don't want to like donate, but also if Topuria loses this, all the fucking hype is gone. There won't be a chance to. I mean, I have made money on Topuria fights, obviously, but
it's one of those. It's one of those weird spots. Like if you think the guy's gonna bust, it's like trying to pick the spot when he busts. Because as soon as he does, you're fucked. Because your value's gone now. Later,
literally, Giga Chikadze, Calvin Kattar.
Well, I bet Calvin Kattar for multiple units.
Right there, you go. Exactly. But literally those type of spots.
Yeah, but that was after I donated loads of dollars on losing money against Giga Chikadze, so I pretty much got near even. I think I'm still down on Giga Fights lifetime, to be honest. But anyway. We'll move on. I hope that fight ends up being fun at the very least. I have a feeling Topuria is just going to wash him, though. Speaking of fun, if this is your idea of fun, we got Molly McCann, Luana Carolina. Legs, I'll throw it to you first. What are your thoughts here?
I think this is your idea of fun, to be honest with you. I think Molly's going to be the more aggressive fighter, landing more volume, landing the bigger power shots. And that's why, to me, at minus 122, I think she's worth a small play. I think she's got a small grappling upside as well if she looks to do that. I just think, again, we're talking about recency bias. Lupe Godinez in her last fight against Carolina. She's a small 115er moving up weight on short notice. Yeah, it was obviously she wasn't able to land takedowns here, but this is a totally completely different fight with a much better striker here. So I think obviously I don't even think the grappling really needs to come into play. I think Molly can stand and strike with her for 15 minutes.
Yeah, I'd consider to play on Molly. I didn't make it. Now the line's kind of getting out to a place where I don't want to play it. I don't really disagree with that take, though. My big issue with Molly is I don't trust, if she ends up stuck in the clinch here, that is the one place where Carolina actually is skilled, then she could just batter her with knees and elbows. But if Molly can do a decent job of being outside and then all the way in on takedowns, she should be the busier fighter, like you said. She should land more strikes. She should be the one going forward. She outlanded Ji Young Kim from distance, which is not, the easiest of things to do. And so I do expect her to land more here. I expect, Molly could have significant grappling success. I mean, Poliana Botelho was taking down Luana and holding her there. So I have to imagine Molly can as well. I think she's a rightful favorite. I think there is a reasonable case to bet her, but I'm passing. Luke, what do you think?
So from someone who bet McCann over Kim, did not feel great about cashing that one. I did think she won the fight, but I think there was a substantial argument that Kim was the more effective striker. Obviously, we know, in MMA judging in 2022, it doesn't necessarily mean much. My thing is kind of back to you, John, is I think that there are clinch advantages for Carolina in this fight. And to even Lags' point, that Godinez didn't land takedowns, but that's still kind of a component with McCann. Despite her attempting takedowns, I mean, her ratio of landing takedowns is not great, and she's fighting a very big girl here. Now, granted, I know McCann is not a 115 in comparison to Godinez. I can see that 100%, but I don't think it's just auto instant that McCann lands takedowns at the same time too. So My opinion is that she probably wins I think it looks very similar to the Kim fight, where it's close. She's eating a lot of big shots. She probably wins on optics, and going forward, it's in the UK. They're going to give homegirl the nod. But the difference for me in terms of a Carolina and Kim is, to your point, John, I think there are better clinch components from Carolina, where Kim is a one-dimensional boxer who can't make McCann pay for any of those inside entries, where I think Carolina might be able to. So my pick is McCann, but I'm not trying to lay it personally. I think a slight lean to McCann is probably accurate.
Yeah, fair. Moving on. I mean, we have a stupid fight here. We got Gunnar Nelson coming off a long hiatus. He's taking on Takashi Sato. Gunnar should sub him. I mean, I guess that's the take. You know, you touched on it a bit earlier. I guess the one concern for me is like Sato's a bum on the mat, but like I'm not sure his first level takedown defense is awful. And while Gunner's in space, he's a liability. You know, the guy fights with that Conor McGregor karate style stance, except with about a third of the defense that Conor does, and Sato does hit pretty hard. But with that said, it's just like, you know, I get it's a huge number, but it's like, what percentage does Sato knock him out before Gunner's able to get him to the mat? And I don't think it's very high percentage. And I do think, even if he's not an insta sub, I think once it's down there, he probably doesn't get back up. Gunner's probably, I mean, certainly the highest level jiu-jitsu practitioner Sato's facing here. He should really take care of business. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, no in-depth for me here. I like Gunner. To your point, 2.5 year layoff. Let's see what he looks like coming back. But I also can't concede the fact that he has been dropped, I think, 3 times in the UFC. He's not exactly a pace machine, and both guys kind of fight in a very similar way, that outside karate based style. So when the fight's standing, I don't know how anybody could have the standpoint that it's not competitive, if not actually favors Sato. To be honest, it's just the ground. To your point, where I don't like what I've seen from Sato, and I actually bet Sato against Bai, so which might have been one of my worst bets of all time. But so yeah, we'll see. I like Gunner. Once again, it's another one of those spots like who's laying minus 450 on a guy coming off a 2.5 year layoff. Like I'm good. I'm good.
Lags, how about you?
Yeah, I mentioned it a little earlier. I'm pretty much, you deserve anything that's coming to you if you're laying this kind of number with Gunner coming off this kind of layoff. To be honest with you, I think probably the best like play on the fight would probably be like an under 2.5. I was looking minus 170. Not that I'm looking to play that, but like it kind of seems like pretty binary in the sense that if once he gets Sato down, he's probably going to finish him. And then on the feet, I mean, I just think that Gunner's a horrible nail. He's a good hammer, but absolutely horrible nail. So when he's not in those grappling exchanges, he just looks lost, to be honest with you. So yeah, I mean, I like violence. It's not a bad look, but again, it just could look like a staring contest while it's on the feet. So it's like, yeah, complete pass.
Yeah, moving on though. We got a fun one. We got the baddie making his second fight in the UFC. O2 is going to be rocking for this fight, taking on Mexico. We'll always have you wrong, Kazula Vargas. What do you think, Luke?
To me, it depends on what Patty wants to do. To be honest, I think Homeboy needs to get back to his roots. And I think he takes the dude down, and I think he subs him within the first couple of rounds, to be completely honest. You know, Vargas consistently struggled on bottom, dropped the second to wrong. All 3 rounds to Silva, I think over 12 minutes of control. Even his last loss to Oladipo, wrestling was the component of as to why he lost the fight. I don't think Pimblett's like an uber strong MMA based wrestler per se, but you know, he's a very strong grappler, and I don't think anyone's overtly attacked subs on Vargas historically. So I think Pimblett can put him out. The problem I have with Patty is because of the gimmick and the nature, dude just coming off of a fucking KO win, you know, he's in his home country, the UK, that he's one of these grapplers that's just going to like fall in love with his hands as if he's some good striker. Because I'm just going to call it spade a spade. This guy's a fucking horrible if I'm being completely honest, his defense sucks. He moves back in straight lines. He doesn't move his head at all. Fucking homeboy Vendramini almost killed him. He almost killed him. I actually picked Vendramini in the other fight. Didn't go over so well. Did bet the under 2.5, so that did go well. But nonetheless, the guy still had the same defensive shitty tendencies he's had for the last 5 years. He's not going to move his head. He's straight up on the center line. The thing is with Vargas just isn't really dangerous at all, which is why I think Patty being a big favorite, makes sense here. But at the same time, is Patty, 80% in a kickboxing match with Vargas? No, in my opinion, he's not at all. Yeah. So to me, it comes down to what, Patty wants to do. If he wants to sit there and try to sit there and box, a tough Mexican. And that's the thing with Vargas. Not a big fan of Vargas. I think Vargas sucks, to be completely honest. But these Mexican dudes, tough to get fucking knocked out. Historically, Vargas has never been finished with strikes. So if he wants to sit there and blocks the guy for 15 minutes, that's a pretty stupid ass game plan, Patty. At least in terms of maximizing your win equity, when I think he can just honestly run this dude on the ground in 1 or 2 personally. I think he's the best submission grappler that Vargas has fought to date, who's actually going to attack sub. So actually did play this fight. I played a unit on Patty by sub at plus 280.
Nice. Plus 280. That's not bad. Lags, what do you think?
Yeah, let me look at that for you. Yeah, it's plus 195 on FanDuel now. Yeah. Yeah, I think kind of similar to the Topuria fight. I think Patty honestly just runs him on the ground, and I just think this is a fairly easy Patty inside the distance type of spot. To be honest, I don't think Vargas offers much off of his back, so I think it's a Patty showcase spot in London.
Yeah, I guess I'm with Luke in that if Patty stands with him, I think there's some upside for Vargas here. But yeah, look, the bottom line is I know Vargas had some grappling success against Wrong, but as we've seen, Wrong is just not very good. He's pretty bad. And the De Silva fight, De Silva's an okay grappler, but he's nothing special. But he pretty much did whatever he wanted, and I think Patty's a much slicker grappler than De Silva is. I kind of think if he gets on top of him, he probably subs him. Yeah, there's going to come a time to fade Patty Pimblett. I don't think he's that good. But in keeping with, the theme of this card, they're giving one of their Euro guys, in particular one of their English guys, a very, very good matchup to make him look good here. Patty's got some hype behind him. If he's smart, he should go out there and wash Wrong. If I honestly thought for a second that, Wrong had a reasonable chance to work up off takedowns, or not Wrong, Vargas had a reasonable chance to work up off takedowns, I'd play him here. But I just don't rate his grappling at all. And, whatever else you want to say about Patty, I don't think he's a great wrestler. I think he's a terrible striker. I think he's a terrible defensive grappler. But when he gets on top of you, he's very dangerous, and Vargas can't stop takedowns. And, yeah, I think Patty should go through him here. No real interest in the fade here. Hoping he wins and they rebook that Jared Gordon fight. That's the optimal outcome, if I'm being honest. Moving on. Now we got a banger. We got Arnold Allen. We got Dan Hooker. Arnold Allen still, I guess he's not undefeated. 17-1, undefeated in the UFC, 8-fight winning streak. Dan Hooker coming back down to 145 for the first time in about 5 years. Lags, what do you think?
Well, I'll start off by saying this is a spot where the UK fighter is not getting a favorable matchup. I actually like Dan Hooker quite a bit here. I got 2 units on Dan Hooker plus 100. Yeah, I just completely candid. I don't really understand the Allen love at all. I don't on the feet. Hooker's going to be landing more volume, landing the bigger strikes. He's got the higher finishing upside, obviously. And in terms of the grappling, I don't think Allen's going to be I think Allen could get Hooker down maybe once, maybe twice, but I don't think he's landing any kind of significant top time here. So to me, I don't really see the huge scope for an Allen win, to be honest with you. I think he's more technical on the feet, but I think Hooker's just, I don't know. To me, he's more volatile, he's going to create that kind of chaos. He's higher finishing upside. I don't know. I like Dan Hooker a lot in the spot.
Yeah, I think Dan's going to fuck him up, to be honest. I bet 3 units on him at minus 110, and the line's moving the other way. If it hits plus 120, I'm just going to go full max on it, 5 units. I'm very confident. I feel like I have a good read on it. I guess maybe Allen has some scope of wrestling Hooker here. but I'm pretty skeptical of that. The only guys who have has ever really dominated him on the mat is Islam, and that's like okay, like, whatever. And like you look at this fight, and it's like, well, Allen basically his entire career has just been a technical boxer, and he is technical, and he's a more technical striker here, but he's a low volume technical boxer who's generally been a lot bigger than the guys he's been fighting. But he doesn't throw much volume ever. We saw Sadiq outlanded by 25 strikes. Now, he only won the Sadiq fight because he hurt him in 2 separate rounds. So he would have lost that fight cleanly. We saw him lose minutes standing to Nick Lentz. Lentz actually out-attempted him by 40 strikes in that fight. He only outlanded Jordan Rinaldi by 6 strikes. Okay, like, you get where I'm going with this? Now we have Dan Hooker here. Like, look at the fucking guys who were beating Dan Hooker, man. Like, Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier in a fight, by the way, if it was 3 rounds, and Hooker would have won unanimously. Michael Chandler is one of the biggest hitters there is. Hooker is a very high volume fight striker. He throws a lot of kicks, and Allen's very open to the body. He's the much bigger hitter. If they get into the clinch, he's going to be the stronger guy. He's got knees that come up the middle. To your point, Lags, he's a much more dangerous finisher. Allen doesn't finish really anybody. I get it. There's concerns about Hooker coming back down to 145 or whatever, but like, this isn't a situation of like Jose Aldo, who you're hearing stories about him eating 3 pounds of lettuce a day for a month to make 135. Like, Hooker made 145 for most of his career. Maybe there are concerns that he reverts to his form at 145, but I don't think that's very intuitive. I think the guy left 145 at 26. He just got better. That's what tends to happen. Yeah, stylistically, it's massively favorable to Hooker. He's going to throw more output. He's far more dangerous. And as I mentioned, Allen's always used to being the bigger and longer guy. He's giving up 5 inches of height and 5 inches of reach here. Allen tends to get by getting in and out, and he hasn't faced a lot of guys who can close distance back. He's not going to get out of the pocket for free here. We just saw Hooker fight a southpaw who can move in Nasrat and basically completely shut it down with pressure. We saw him fight Poirier, who in my opinion is a better boxer than Allen is, and honestly, he looked great early in that fight. And it's like, yeah, I don't, unless it turns out Hooker is badly compromised, I don't really see how this is a closely lined fight. Like, if this fight was being made and there were 0 concerns, I'd legit have Hooker up at like 75%. I don't really, I know there's all the people that are like, oh, Allen's more technical. I am telling you, he is going to walk him down and punish it. Maybe he can't take the shots, but I think he can, and I'd have him at like 65%, honestly, even if you take 10% away.
Yeah, to your point, John, there, actually, I think if throw the Yusuf fight away completely, like ignore that fight, say that fight never happened, that next fight for Allen, if Hooker was fighting him right after Makhachev, I think Hooker's probably at least minus 150.
Yeah, I guess. I think that still I would probably bet it at minus 150, to be honest.
Right.
That's the point that I'm making here.
Yeah.
So I love Hooker here. And I'm not even really worried about British judging. I think he's going to fucking smash him, personally. That's my take. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to complete the trifecta here. And I think my big point with a couple of your point, John, with the Yusuf fight that I think a lot of people are missing. Okay, so if those 2 big moments don't happen for Arnold Allen in that fight, Arnold Allen loses that fight. Like, he does. Like, he was getting outstruck, but he just landed big moments. So I can't take anything away from Arnold Allen in that capacity, but it's like those distance-based exchanges were competitive. So people look at it from a betting perspective and say, "I'll throw it out the window. Oh, he fucking dropped him twice. That is what it is. So therefore, he was better." It's like, well, no. Look at the large body of minutes that were actually happening in the fight. It's like, no, dude, he was actually losing the large body of minutes that were happening in the fight. He would have lost. My point is that Arnold Allen is going to face a whole other level of pressure in this fight that he has not seen before, right? And when we have seen quasi small examples, once again, the Yusuf fight, pretty knockdowns, very competitive. We saw Nick Lentz, who is a 5'6" wrestler, go out there and take a round off the guy via striking, right? So you're giving me a massive guy in Dan Hooker, who's a perennial top 10 guy who's going to go forward, put that pace on him. Is Arnold Allen going to be able just sit there and play this stick and move game for 15 minutes? We'll see. If he does, honestly, my hat will be off. My hat will be off to the guy because I think Dan Hooker is going to bring a whole nother level of size and pressure that this kid has not seen before. Maybe he could wrestle him potentially, but once again, he's not necessarily the guy diving on legs, and I'm not overly consistent that I think that is what his game plan is going to be. If he does, I'm not sure he has that kind of success that I think he potentially needs. So, I don't understand the line movement, to be honest. And this is coming from someone who's a huge Allen guy. I love Arnold Allen. I've made a ton of money off the kid, but it's like, to me, it's recency bias. It's all recency bias. Which is what is moving this line. Like there is no stylistic considerations being considered here. There's no historic considerations being considered here. Allen's going to sit there and just dance around Dan Hooker for 15 minutes. He's just going to go out there and drop Dan Hooker when he's never been dropped at 145 before. All right. Make your assumptions. I will bet on knowns. I will bet on stats. I will bet on historics. Bet on your bullshit. I'm going to bet on my stuff. I love Dan Hooker at pick'em.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the thing for me. For like this line to be accurate, one of two things has to be true. One, he has to be badly compromised. And to like your point, like Luke, it's like we don't know what it's like. What the only data we have is that Hooker made 145 his entire career. He did a test cut a couple months ago. He's never been dropped at 145.
Never
That's
missed
what we
too.
know. Right. And so it's like, okay, it's possible, but like I can't cap something like significantly that I have no idea what the status is. I have to imagine, this guy could have kept fighting, making 250K a fight at 55. Obviously, he's going down to 45 for a reason. And the only other really way I think this line can be justified, it's like you need Allen to massively outperform his sample. And I talked about it a couple weeks ago with the Tagir and Elliott fight, and it's like guys who are fighting a lower level of competition don't generally, when they take a step up, outperform how they have performed against that level of competition. It just doesn't really happen. And that's really what you need here for Allen to be, a favorite in this fight, So
right, either that or a compromised Hooker, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens, but like I mean, people keep betting it. 70% of Tapology is picking Arnold Allen. Maybe we're crazy, or maybe we're right. We're gonna find out. Anyway, move on. We have the main event.
Questions will be answered.
Questions will be answered. That is certainly true. And look, if we're wrong again, I'm happy to say I'm an idiot when I'm an idiot. I don't think that's going to happen though, to be honest. But I feel pretty good about Hooker here. Last fight of the night, Aspinall. He's making his first real big step up in competition here. He's fighting in the main event. Place is going to be rocking. He is taking on Alexander Volkov. Luke, what do you think here?
I think Volkov gives him some issues. To be completely honest, we have Tom Aspinall, a guy who actually I like in general. Mechanically, I like what I've seen. I think he's kind of one of these new breeds of heavyweight. He's fast, he's explosive. He has athletic advantages that I don't think you see from a lot of heavyweights, but it doesn't change the reality that the guy has not been past 7.5 minutes in a fight, and the best one he has is Sergey Spivak. So we're going to see how that translates to a guy in Alexander Volkov, who's going to push a very consistent pace over the course of 15 minutes, who has been 5 rounds multiple times. This is actually a 6th scheduled 5-round fight over the course of his career. And my issue with Aspinall is that he just hasn't faced any adversity. Like how does the guy face any adversity? We don't know. The guy could just completely fold. And at the end of the day, it's also compounding. It's fucking heavyweight. It's heavyweight. And Volkov lands over, or I should say, almost 5 significant strikes landed per minute at a 57% clip. So it's not like Volkov's a guy who's going to sit there and just, meh. No. He's the guy who's going to go out there and put some hands on you. He's going to put some hands on you. So if you're not going to react well to that and your cardio is not to the standard it needs to be, Volkov's going to finish you. So in my opinion, I know me and John might disagree with this, and I'm kind of on the leg side this week. I think Volkov's finishing upside is being significantly undervalued this week. I think it's primarily Aspinall early, or Volkov is going to go out there and just fucking pace this dude, and just see it in another level of pressure that he's never seen before. Despite Volkov only finishing 45% of his UFC wins, he's finished 74% of his overall of his overall pro wins in general. So I like Volkov to go out there and put a pace on this kid if he doesn't die. So we'll see. I like general fight-based violence overall.
Lags, how about you?
Yeah, so similar to Luke, I have general fight-based violence as well. I have I have 2 units on the under 3.5 rounds here. Yeah, like largely early here. I think Tom, again, super fast, super athletic, super powerful. I think he has the chances of clipping and hurting Volkov and finishing him early in this fight. But to Luke's point, yeah, homeboy hasn't really been outside of 7.5 minutes. The Arlovsky fight's the longest extension we've really seen of him, and it's like he could just completely fold and just wilt under the pressure of Volkov, because Volkov hits hard as shit too, man. And I don't think Aspinall's defense is the best either. So I just think it's more of a show me type of spot. I'm more of the opinion of, if you like Volkov, betting him after a round and a half is probably the best way to do it. I think you're probably going to get a better number, and you avoid that potential early Aspinall KO. But I like general violence here, under 3.5 rounds, minus 120.
Yeah, I like Volkov a good bit, to be honest. I'll be honest, the one thing keeping me from going like really heavy on Volkov here is the last fight with Topuria, where he just looked so shit. It was almost like a career worst look for him, to be honest.
And that's kind of, sorry, real quick, John, to interrupt you. That's kind of where I'm at with the whole live bet thing. So like, if he does look kind of shit and slow, Aspinall can KO him early. He's fast and powerful. So.
Yeah, he can. I mean, for sure. I guess like my view is, it's like Volkov's 33, right? He doesn't have health issues. Like, that is not really the age that you would expect any kind of decline in heavyweight. If anything, it's like the age where heavyweights start peaking, you know? Now, I'm not saying I expect to see the best performance of Volkov's career, obviously, but he did have a kid 5 days earlier. I can tell you, the first couple of nights after you have a kid are fucking brutal. I'm not going to say that's the only reason. Look, he looked awful. But, if you go back past that, his last couple of fights, he looked pretty good. Even rewatching the Gane fight, it was a more competitive fight than I remembered. Like, obviously, Gane won the fight. But, it's not like Volkov had, like, zero success in that fight. And, the big concern here, I think, obviously, we'd all agree with his speed and Aspinall's speed. But I'm not really sure that he's any faster than Gane is, or like Walt Harris is. And what I noticed in watching those fights, like, Volkov actually reads head strikes really well. Like, you very, very rarely land clean on him. And so it's like, I don't think Aspinall is going to be able to just explode him early like he has some guys in the past. And on top of that, it's like Volkov has a lot of tools, like his front teeth kick, his jabs, that he can use to kind of keep Aspinall from just kind of blitzing the pocket and like bombing him out here. Aspinall hasn't really dealt with somebody who has real range tools, not to mention someone who's significantly bigger than him, like Volkov is. On top of which, to your point, Luke, you talk about the volume that Volkov has. I more or less think that, look, the Aspinall KO is 100% live. I actually kind of like Aspinall too. I faded him with Arlovsky, but like, he's impressed me a bit. He's fast. He's obviously explosive. He's got good boxing. But like, we're going from like Andrei Arlovsky to Alexander Volkov is an insane jump. And it's like, you can try to compare it to Gane all day long, but Aspinall's mostly a head striker. Gane's strike diversity is just so insane. Like, that fight in the pocket was fought at such a high level, and a level that we've never really seen Aspinall display striking wise. It's just so hard for me to believe that he's going to win minutes here. And so it's
not to cut you off real quick, John, but like, Gane's elite defensively, and fucking Volkov went over 100 distance strikes on the guy, even in a loss.
Right. And it's like, so we haven't really seen Gane or Aspinall deal with a volume striker like Volkov. We haven't seen him deal with size like Volkov. We haven't seen him deal with leg kicks, which Volkov's going to throw a ton of, or a lot of body work, really. We haven't seen Aspinall extended. Can he grapple Volkov? I don't know. I saw someone this week say he could do what Blades did. Dude, Curtis fucking Blades is like the best wrestler in the division. I really don't think that's happening. So it comes back to me. I'm not saying Aspinall can't win a decision, but I think for that to happen, he has to basically verify some knowns that, first of all, if Aspinall can keep the kind of energy explosion he uses for 5 rounds, he's probably going to be a champion. It's just kind of the reality. Like, I haven't seen a heavyweight who can use that kind of explosive action and maintain their cardio. But so you basically have to see him demonstrate a level of output and cardio we haven't seen in the past. I don't know. I have to favor Volkov heavily in the decision. And even to your guys' points, like, I'm not betting the over. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you see, like, you can see those liver kicks start to really add up on Aspinall here and him get finished. And so ultimately, it's like, I think the majority of his win equity is early in this fight, most likely. I shouldn't say I don't think it's that likely. It's like 25, 30%. Like, I buy that, that he can knock him out at that clip. But I also think Volkov's pretty defensively sound. I think Volkov should be about minus 150 here, to be honest. He's got reliable volume. He's much more tested. The guy's got 40 pro fights, man. Aspinall is going from, Alan Baudot, Jake Collier, and Sergey Spivak and Andrei Arlovsky. Look, we all love Arlovsky, but, like, Volkov would be like minus 400 against Arlovsky, that's like, to Alexander Volkov. Like, it's such a huge jump with a 5-round fight with a guy who's been in many and gone the distance of many 5-round fights. Yeah, I don't see how you don't favor Volkov in the spot, to be honest. Like, that's my view. I have concerns about the Topuria fight. But yeah, I'm betting on Russia here. I'm betting on Volkov's volume. And, now I will say, I heard a rumor that if the fight falls out, Marcin Tybura is going to come in here. I will not bet Marcin Tybura against Tom Aspinall. That I can promise you.
I will still bet fight violence there if we're looking at a main event 5 rounds for that.
It's going to be minus 400 legs.
Yeah, I know. No, I know. Wishful thinking. But I will add last point to what you were talking about, John, with the wrestling. I was looking at earlier. Prize Picks has Aspinall's takedowns at 1.5. Look at the under.
Yeah, I kind of like. I would be.
I like the under there.
I think if Aspinall actually comes out and starts shooting, I think he's nuts. I actually.
Yeah.
Honestly, if Aspinall
he's gonna gas himself out faster doing that. He's
gonna get finished if he does that. I think, to be honest, he might get finished anyway. I'm not like shitting on your guys' overpicks. I'm just giving. Right. I'm just saying. I think Volkov is not exactly the kind of guy who's like going to sit there and be like, oh, he's tired, I'm going to go for it. Volkov's going to do his thing. If it results in a finish, it results in a finish, He's just a very consistent fighter. But yeah, I'm going to be betting Volkov. I'm just waiting because people keep pounding Tom Aspinall. Apparently, the 6'8" Russian with 40 fights, who's one fight from the title, has no chance against the guy that beat Andrei Arlovsky. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I like Hooker. I like Valiev. I like Volkov. So. You guys got anything else you want to throw out there?
Ward Nikita Krylov, that'll be a great fight. It's going to be hilarious probably either way. So,
Luke, anything?
My sneaky take, Corey McKenna, inside the distance, plus 300.
All right. I could see it. I could see that. What's your subline?
I don't even know.
Anyway, thanks for coming out tonight, guys. It's an early show. Maybe we'll get a Spaces together at some point. Maybe I'll throw it out there.
Listen up. I'm not doing anything. I'm down to do that.
Saturday afternoon, Lags can have an RVD. Luke can have a Busch Latte. I'll figure something out. I'll probably be getting yelled at by my wife for having my headphones in my kitchen watching the fights. But yeah, maybe we'll throw Spaces together. You guys want to hop in? That'd be cool. But yeah, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. As usual, guys, if you like the show, please drop a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. As usual, you got me, John, at MMA Fox, Luke at SWR_betting, and Lags at Danny_Lags. We'll see you guys next week, 10 p.m. Eastern. Got a special guest next week, I believe. Or is it in 2 weeks?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, all right. In 2 weeks, got a fun little guest coming on the show. But yeah, we'll see you next week. Good luck this weekend. Fade Britain this week, boys. Have a good one. Take it easy.